Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of On-Prem Pros. I'm your host, Ryan Brown, and I'm joined by my partner in crime, Mr. Tyler Young. He's Solutions Architect for xByte Technologies. Tyler, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be back.
Yeah, and today we're going to be talking about a customer who originally came to us for Storage Spaces Direct. They're looking to do a renewal because that's a little old, and they were looking at the AX Ready notes, but they ended up choosing PowerStore. So we're going to walk you through that journey today, so you can understand kind of why they made the decisions they made. So Tyler, can you set the stage for everybody?
Yeah,
Give us some details about their environment they were coming from.
yeah, absolutely. So, like you had mentioned, right, customer was coming to us. Funny enough, originally they were, so they have a 4 node AX 740 cluster, which is essentially PowerEdge R740 XDs that are running S2D, which is essentially Microsoft's version of vSAN, right? It's their hyperconverged platform, and they wanted an additional node, and that's all they wanted to do. But unfortunately, they the 14th gen um, was end of sale. So essentially, there was no way we could essentially add an official 14th gen node to that cluster. So we had to look at either giving them an unsupported one, or essentially we would just build the same configuration out on PowerEdge and deploy it with their within the cluster, or we can look at something new. And he said, you know what? This is a little, older anyway. Let's look at something new. So we looked at 15 gen AX, we looked at 16 gen, and wanted to kind of keep with that similar platform because he's had it for quite some time. He loved the platform, was familiar with it, and in his mind, right, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And that's something where we were definitely happy to kind of kind of give him what he was looking for there. Unfortunately, when we were looking at you know refreshing that with the 15th or 16th gen equivalents, pricing just was astronomical. And funny enough, it wasn't even, a lot of people say, oh, well, it's just, the hardware manufacturer. Funny enough, we looked at just doing PowerEdge with that same exact specs and, you know, pricing was significantly smaller. So it really came down to that software layer, being, layered on top of that. But,
So
for
now, for those who don't know about Ready Notes are where Microsoft or VMware also they collaborate with Dell and they create a server with a gold image of the software and all the firmware for all the devices on it, and they guarantee it's going to work. Like, hey, instead of updating it to a single piece of firmware, Dell will test everything and say, you know what, this gold image will absolutely work, and it reduces a lot of problems. And there's special support tied to those Ready Notes,
single
so that's
thread.
why people will do it, especially with S2D or Azure Stack. You kind of need that because it's not as supported.
Yeah, I'm glad you kind of went into that because, like I said, it's or like you said, it's one throat to choke with that, right? It's no longer calling it a Dell and them saying, oh, it's Microsoft issue, or Microsoft saying it's a Dell issue, right? You're buying that ready node from Dell where it's already a pre-validated solution, and Dell and Microsoft jointly say, hey, this is going to work, and it's going to be supported as such versus the latter of, like I said, calling and pointing fingers there. So yeah, you're spot on.
I'm gonna bring up on the screen here. This is what the customer was running. This is the S2D active actor stretch cluster, and this was another problem that you and I talked about earlier before the show. Is that the stretch clusters are no longer supported by Microsoft, and that was another one of the problems.
Hmm.
So in this case, it's active. He can have within the same, I guess in their case, in the same campus, they can have two servers, or actually multiple servers, because it's S2D, and with a virtual storage, and then active with another cluster in another part of the same campus.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, essentially what this is we have four independent servers. Two paired at one building, two paired at another building, and instead of having a physical SAN connected to either of them, you're taking the local storage on each of those servers and you're pulling all four of those servers together through software magic. That Hyper-V uses, in their process called S2D, or Storage Spaces Direct. VMware has something similar called vSAN. There's Ceph, right? There's a lot of different variants out there. Nutanix, uses something similar, but Again, that's essentially a software magic that makes all four independent servers look like one giant pool of storage. And the stretch clustering comes in where, like Ryan mentioned, you don't have to have all four servers in that same rack. So that way, if one rack was to go down, or one, in this case, one building was to go down to a fire, right? Or do, to something, weird happening to that building, that's something where, you're still up and running. You don't have any data loss or, any hiccups there. So that's what the customer was running at the time. And that's what they're comfortable with. And we tried getting them into that solution again, because again, that's what they wanted.
It was the funny part of the story is that they came to you and they said, "Hey, you know what? There's no way we can get the same redundancy of an active solution with a 3-2-1 architecture."
Mhm.
So now let me pull up what they ended up going to.
Yeah, no, and that was something that, was, and I guess I'll back up for a second too, because, one thing that we really try to focus on is we're gonna bring that expertise to you as the customer of, hey, these are all the different ways, that we can get what you're looking for done, right? Some may be more expensive than the other, but this is all the ways that we can do this. These are best, what some customers consider best practice, or this is what we're seeing most often. But at the end of the day, if it's not something that you're comfortable with, right, we're going to lead with whatever you're most comfortable with. We're going to still give you all the knowledge you need to see what else is out there, so you can make that, that confident decision. But at the end of the day, if, there's a better solution out there, it's our job to make sure that, we're saving you the most amount of money, and, giving you the, what's going to meet all of your priorities. And this is one of those examples, because right out the gate, when, when I met this customer, funny enough, I met him in person at Dell Tech World, back in Dell's 2024, Dell Tech World out in Vegas. And, he flat out, the focus of that year was PowerStore. And, when he brought this to me and we talked about the solution, right, I mentioned, hey, are you interested in PowerStore? Is this something that, is, something that may be a good fit for you guys? Because, we maybe we get better performance and greater scalability, resiliency, etc. And he said, absolutely not. We don't want three-tiered. We had a bad experience in the past with a physical SAN. We want that more resiliency with hyperconverged, and that's why we want to stick with, with Hyper-V's S2D solution. So, at that point, that's what the customer wanted. I did my due diligence in telling him about it, but he wanted hyperconverged, and that's where we led with that. And unfortunately, from a pricing standpoint, it didn't make sense. And like you mentioned with the, Microsoft losing some of the features that he wanted, like stretch clustering, I mean, things are just kind of not looking as bright with storage spaces direct. So that's where, we did have that conversation, said, hey, would it make sense to look at what we could do with PowerStore? Not to say you have to go with this, but just to see what the pricing would look like, what it would look like from performance comparison, feature sets, etc. Because a lot of the features he was calling out was in fact supported and actually, urged and recommended from PowerStore architecture versus, what he was able to, do from his existing environment. So, um, yeah,
So in this picture of where they ended up going, the TLDR. It's funny. I look at this picture, I'm like, wow, there's a lot of lines. There's a lot of stuff going on. But that's just, again, the TLDR is that it's resilient. Everything's duplicated. Anything can go down, and this cluster will still survive. And this is getting you the same exact resiliency as, and I'll bring this up, as the active stretch cluster, but you now get all the bonuses of PowerStore.
yeah,
So when the customer saw this, they were like, "Wow, okay, we can do this." And as Tyler mentioned, we not only pitched the solutions, but we also gave them access to our solution center, so they could actually see what would happen if something failed. And Tyler, you can go into what exactly happened with the simulator.
yeah. No, that played a huge role into this. And right when we first kind of brought up this image and showed the customer, hey, listen, you're asking for, to have, essentially, he wanted to make sure that, if, because again, I don't know if we iterated earlier, but there are large a manufacturing company, and um, you know, a lot of things run hot in the different buildings and warehouses and testing and whatnot. So, one of the concerns for them specifically is fires breaking out. So he wanted to make sure that if a fire was to break out either in a data center or in a building, and one, data center was go down, they're still up and running. So essentially, he wanted to deploy a stretch cluster across multiple buildings within that same campus, and, be able to lose a building and still be up and running. So in this scenario, right, what we did was we had it, architected so that he has a 4 node cluster. with two power stores. So it'd be two hosts connected to one power store via redundant switching, and then at another building, right, have the same thing over there. And what's going to happen is host at I don't know. Can you guys see my mouse? You probably can't. No. But essentially, what happens is at node one, right, or at site one, cluster one, if you were to lose a power store or you were to lose completely, and again, for you to lose a power store, let me just pause for a second. It's gonna take a lot. I mean, it's active nodes. I mean, we've talked about this very in depthly on previous podcasts. I know that. So, to give you guys a recap, there's a lot of resiliency built into the power store alone. It's not like you lose a power supply, you're down, or even lose just one drive. Right? There's a lot that goes into bringing a power store down because of all the resiliency built into the different active nodes, the drives, etc. There's a lot that goes into that. So if for some reason they were to lose that entire power store, those hosts that are connected to it can still access the secondary power store. And because both power stores are replicating via a Metro, which essentially is synchronous replication, so zero RTO, meaning that essentially you're not losing any, there's no data loss whatsoever because everything is always synchronously actively being synced from Metro 1 to Metro 2. Um, but essentially, what's going to happen is all four hosts are always connected to each cluster or to each power store at all times. So it doesn't matter what's going to happen; you're still up and running. So that really was a really good reassurance for the customer that he could get that stretch clustering plus get the active between the power stores, and not to mention when we were talking about going with the hyperconverge or the storage spaces direct through doing the AX clusters, that was coming in at a significantly higher price point for just two nodes, which is essentially just a mirror, right? You're doing a RAID one from node one to node two. We're now talking about two power stores, which technically has active nodes in each one. Plus, we're talking about four total hosts, and this is all NVMe backed architecture. Plus, each host has its own GPU for some of the customers' GPU centric workloads. I mean, that's a lot of hardware in a solution, and that's coming in at the same price, if not better than what the 2 node was. So, I mean, that, right there, plus he got all those features he wanted. I mean, the customer absolutely loved the idea of this. And this is, mind you, this is somebody who had a terrible experience with a SAN in the past where he was let down by a SAN where he had a lot of downtime because it didn't meet the needs that he had. And he's been anti SAN since then. So, for this to really kind of come full circle and the customer to see the value of what PowerStore can do for him, I mean, it was just really kinda cool to see, that all play out.
Now, in a solutions lab, you guys simulated I think one of the hosts going down or one of the
Yep.
SANs going down.
Yeah, we
Can
simulated.
you talk through what happened when you guys did that simulation?
Yeah, so we set it up so that the customer could actually see what it would look like from a management piece, so he could actually see what it would look like to manage the power store, manage the cluster, and then we simulated, hey, not only is this how you get it set up and deploy it, this is how it looks to do a failover. And we were able to simulate a host failure. We were able to simulate a full cluster failure. Simulate if one of the power stores went down, and we were able to show what it would look like from for the failover to happen, which it was really funny enough in this situation wasn't a lot to show because it was all autonomous, right? The one of the greatest benefits with going Metro is the fact that not only is it happening in real time synchronization from from one power store to another, but you're also not doing anything from a failover standpoint, meaning that if it happens at 3 a.m. and you're on vacation or you're sleeping, you don't have to do anything. It does it for you. You don't have to do a bunch of PowerShell instances to get everything set up and predetermined. Everything happens autonomously, and so we were able to kind of show that to the customer and really and give him a feel for that too. So he actually got to drive and run with it on his own to kind of see what the management felt like. So it wasn't just a hey, trust us, but we also got to
Yeah.
kind of show him that failure as well. So it was really cool to kind of put our money where our mouth is because it's a big thing to not only just in general to have customers trust that what we're telling them isn't just marketing or salesy, right? But actually saying, hey, we're going to give you control and let you just run wild with it because, we want you to really get a feel for it. And we want you to feel what we're, so proud to be showing you guys. And again, it was really kind of cool to give him control of that and let him see for himself before even making your purchase.
Yeah, that's awesome. And this customer, they're able to kind of see that in the solutions lab. So if you're out there watching this and you need to see something, you got to find a partner who can give you that ability to do hands-on and test drive stuff. Especially if you're looking at new technology, you kind of want to experience it. And as Tyler said, you don't want to just trust somebody because people just they'll tell you, oh yeah, it'll work, but to actually see it for yourself, see what happens in the failures, see how easy it is to management or hard to manage something, you can see all of that. So
Yeah.
it's great to see that.
And funny enough, just because I know we're kind of running short on time here, but a large competitor of Dell's, oftentimes, or not oftentimes, but I've seen it where they would, call out different things. Oh, PowerStore can't do this, or Dell can't do this with this solution, but we can. But then they won't show them, and we're able to say, okay, well, here's full access to it. We can actually, we'll drive for you, or you can drive. Let's see what what happens. And we were able to prove competitors wrong because they're saying different things, and it's kind of cool what we can really do. And like you mentioned, right, it's not just PowerStore. We have just your basic PowerEdge servers there. We have modular servers. We have PowerFlex. We have hyperconverged. We have Power Protect backup appliances with GPU backed solutions. I mean, we have so many different solutions racked in our data center that are just available for us to show you as customers, or even give customers just full just full control. I mean, it's yeah, every customer should be utilizing it, in my opinion, because it's free and it's something that can definitely, like I said, go a long way with making a decision, and making sure that you're making the right decision for your business.
That's great. And with using us as well, using xByte on the solution side of things, I'll say from the solution side, they'll shout out to our team going actually there to kind of set everything up for the customer. So
Yeah.
they're able to get the benefit of the fact where they don't have to repeat everything they just talked about in the solutions overview in the discovery phase because we knew it all. We're able to relay that to our team that goes out there for the deployment. So this customer kind of get the best of everything.
Yeah, no, spot on. And you guys, I mean, I know, again, right? I've been on several of the podcasts in the past, so you guys know me. Josh Moss has been on several as well. You guys have met him. He's actually the one who's personally flying out to make sure everything goes according to plan with the deployment. He already met with the customer several times to make sure everything's in place, and said he's just booked his ticket yesterday, so he's flying out there in early March to get everything racked and stacked. And then customer in this case wants to be very hands on, so he's actually said, "All right, Mr. Customer, you can be as hands-on as you want." So he's going to let the customer drive, and really kind of see what it feels like to deploy it. And so the customer can learn. It's not just hey, customer, you're just left with hard. We don't know how to use it. No, he's going to get to learn firsthand from Josh, and learn the ways around it. So very excited to see how that goes.
That's great to hear. So we'll kind of leave it with a note for people. If you want to learn more about any of this technology, as Tyler said, if you want to get hands on and see the solutions lab, give us a call. Hit us up on our website, xbyte.com. That's xbyte.com. And you can see for yourself what exactly this technology can do and make your own decisions. All right. So Tyler, any last little bits for everybody?
No, I think that's it for me. But if you want, I can go on another 15-minute nerdy
We'll save it
ramble
for
if you
another
want.
show. We'll save it for another show. All right. Well, Tyler, thank you much for joining us today, and I hope everyone got a lot of benefit for this. And this is Ryan and Tyler signing off from On-Prem Pros. Cheers, everybody.
Thanks, guys.